9 out of 10 Mazda owners have no idea which model in the entire lineup is an almost guaranteed path to 300,000 miles without a major repair bill. The answer is not the one everyone talks about. One of the 5 models on this list once logged over 600,000 miles on its original engine without a rebuild. Another is quietly outselling every competitor in its segment while costing owners less per mile than almost any vehicle on the road today. 5 Mazdas that last forever. Number 5 will surprise you. Number 1 will change how you think about car ownership completely. Let us kick things off. Number 5. Mazda CX-5. If you have spent any time researching compact SUVs in the last decade, you already know the CX-5. It shows up on every B-Stuff list, every reliability ranking, and every automotive journalist's recommended buy list with a consistency that borders on monotonous. But familiarity is not the same as understanding. Most people know the CX-5 is good. Very few people understand exactly why it belongs on a list of Mazdas that last forever, and the reason goes much deeper than the surface level. Praise the car typically receives. The CX-5 launched in 2012 and immediately reset expectations for what a compact SUV could deliver in terms of interior quality, driving dynamics, and long-term value. But what made it genuinely special from a reliability standpoint was not what Mazda added, it was what Mazda deliberately chose not to add. When the compact SUV segment was racing toward turbocharging as the default powertrain strategy, Mazda held firm with naturally aspirated engines. The 2.5-liter Skyactiv G 4-cylinder engine that powers the majority of CX-5 models sold in the United States is one of the most mechanically straightforward power plants fitted to any vehicle in its class. No turbocharger means no turbocharger-bearing wear, no intercooler maintenance, no boost-related heat stress on intake components, and no expensive turbo replacement sitting somewhere between 100,000 and 150,000 miles, waiting to happen on owners who stretch their service intervals. That mechanical simplicity compounds over years of ownership in a way that fundamentally changes the total cost of driving a CX-5 versus a turbocharged competitor. Independent repair cost databases consistently show CX-5 owners spending significantly less per year on unplanned repairs than owners of equivalent turbocharged SUVs from competitive brands. Consumer Reports reliability data has placed the CX-5 among the top performers in the compact SUV segment for multiple consecutive model years. JD Power long-term dependability surveys tell the same story across different ownership cohorts. Real-world ownership reports from high-mileage CX-5 drivers back up everything the data says. Owners with 200,000 miles and beyond regularly report that their primary maintenance expenses consist of tires, brakes, and scheduled fluid services. The expensive surprises that derail the financial plans of high-mileage ownership on competing vehicles simply do not appear at the same frequency on a well-maintained CX-5. The Skyactiv G engine does have one maintenance item that deserves specific attention for owners chasing maximum longevity. The timing chain, which replaced the belt-driven timing systems of older Mazda engines, requires clean oil at the correct viscosity to maintain proper tension and lubrication on the chain guides. What to do? CX-5 owners who chase maximum mileage change their oil every 5,000 to 6,000 miles using the correct Mazda specification oil rather than stretching the manufacturer's recommended interval. That single habit, done consistently, protects the timing chain system and the entire valvetrain throughout an ownership period that can realistically extend well past 250,000 miles. Depreciation on the CX-5 is among the best in the compact SUV segment, which means owners who eventually sell retain more of their original investment than competitors. Insurance rates are low relative to segment peers. Fuel economy, from the naturally aspirated engine, is consistent and predictable across the entire ownership period, rather than declining as turbocharger efficiency degrades over time. The CX-5 is not the flashiest vehicle on this list. It is not the one that generates the most passionate ownership stories or the most dedicated enthusiast following. But it is one of the most financially sound vehicles Mazda has ever built, and owners who hold it past 150,000 miles are routinely rewarded with the kind of low-cost, reliable transportation that turns a car purchase into a genuinely excellent, long-term financial decision. But if the CX-5 is this good at outlasting the competition, the next Mazda on this list takes the formula even further. It has been quietly accumulating some of the most impressive owner-reported high-mileage stories in the entire compact segment for years, and most people outside of dedicated Mazda communities have never heard about them. Number 4. Mazda 3. The Mazda 3 is one of the most underrated long-distance ownership stories in the entire compact car segment. It does not get the cultural attention of the Honda Civic or the Toyota Corolla. It does not carry the brand loyalty momentum of those two legendary competitors. But in terms of what a Mazda 3 delivers to an owner who commits to it for 10 or 15 years and high mileage, the argument it makes is compelling enough to challenge both of them. Let us start with what the Mazda 3 actually is under its striking exterior design. It is a compact car built around the same Skyactiv technology philosophy that defines every reliable Mazda on this list. High compression, naturally aspirated engines that extract more efficiency from each combustion event without the mechanical complexity of forced induction. A 6-speed automatic or manual transmission that prioritizes durability and driver engagement over the kind of fuel economy optimization that requires fragile, complex internal engineering. A suspension and chassis that Mazda engineers tune for genuine driving pleasure while maintaining the mechanical simplicity that makes long-term ownership financially manageable. The current generation Mazda 3, introduced in 2019, moved significantly upmarket in interior quality and design sophistication while maintaining the mechanical fundamentals that made previous generations trustworthy. The result is a car that feels more expensive than it is at purchase and costs less than comparable cars to own over time. Reliability data on the Mazda 3 is consistently strong across generations. Consumer Reports scores for the model have ranked it above both the Civic and the Corolla in specific ownership years, which is a result most consumers never see because the Mazda 3 does not carry the marketing weight that would make those rankings highly visible. Independent owner surveys show very low rates of unexpected mechanical failure in the first 5 years of ownership and competitive long-term repair costs at high mileage. Where the Mazda 3 ownership story gets genuinely remarkable is in the communities of high-mileage owners who have pushed the platform far beyond what most people consider normal for a compact car. Forum posts and owner group discussions are filled with Mazda 3, drivers reporting 200,000 miles with nothing beyond scheduled maintenance. 300,000-mile examples running strong on original engines and transmissions, and occasional outliers that push beyond those figures with proper care. The Skyactiv G 2.0 and 2.5-liter engines fitted to the Mazda 3 are among the most durable small-displacement, naturally aspirated engines in current production. They respond extremely well to consistent maintenance, particularly clean oil at appropriate intervals, clean air filtration, and periodic inspection of the cooling system components. Owners who provide those basics regularly are rewarded with engines that show minimal wear at mileages where competing engines have often required significant attention. One practical advantage the Mazda 3 carries for the long-term ownership cost equation is the depth of the independent mechanic community familiar with the platform. Unlike some of the premium brands on our rankings in other videos, virtually every qualified independent shop in the country has worked on Mazda 3 platforms and carries familiarity with the common maintenance needs and the less common repair scenarios. That mechanic availability keeps service costs competitive and prevents the markup that comes from working on vehicles only specialist shops are comfortable handling. The Mazda 3 is not glamorous in the way a sports car is glamorous, or interesting in the way a truck is interesting to a specific passionate community. It is simply a very well-built, compact car that responds to consistent care by delivering hundreds of thousands of miles of reliable transportation at a total cost that makes the ownership experience quietly remarkable when you add it all up at the end. If this video is shifting how you think about which Mazdas deliver the most long-term value, hit that like button right now and subscribe. We are halfway through this list, and the next 3 models are where things get genuinely interesting. Number 3. Mazda 6. The Mazda 6 occupies a segment that has been systematically abandoned by nearly every major manufacturer in recent years. The midsize sedan market contracted severely as consumer preference shifted toward SUVs and crossovers, and brands including Ford and Chevrolet exited the segment entirely. Mazda kept the 6 in production longer than almost anyone expected, and in doing so, they left a vehicle in the market that represents one of the purest expressions of what the Mazda engineering philosophy can achieve when applied to a larger platform with more space to develop it. The Mazda 6 is a beautiful car. That statement gets made often enough in automotive media that it risks becoming meaningless, but in this context, it matters for a practical reason. The Mazda 6 has maintained strong residual values and consistent buyer interest despite operating in a declining segment, which is a direct reflection of how genuinely well resolved the car is on every dimension, including styling. A car that holds its visual appeal over many years of ownership is a car that retains more resale value than a car that looks dated after 3 model cycles. Mazda 6 owners benefit from that retained appeal every time they eventually sell. On the mechanical side, the 2.5-liter naturally aspirated engine in the Mazda 6 delivers the same durability advantages that define the CX-5 and Mazda 3 entries on this list. It is a refined, well-sorted powertrain that has accumulated a substantial history of high-mileage ownership reports without the kind of systematic failure patterns that generate online communities of frustrated owners comparing repair bills. The Mazda 6 also benefits from being available with a 6-speed manual transmission in certain configurations, and manual transmission Mazda 6 ownership statistics are particularly impressive from a longevity standpoint. Properly driven manual transmissions in vehicles with appropriate engine character for that transmission style tend to outlast automatic units in total lifespan and carry lower repair costs when they do eventually need service. The Mazda 6 manual is one of the increasingly rare opportunities to own a mid-size sedan with a well-engineered stick shift and genuine long-term durability in the same package. Interior quality in the current generation Mazda 6 is widely acknowledged as above segment average, which matters for long-term ownership in a way that does not show up in mechanical reliability surveys, but absolutely shows up in the daily ownership experience. A car whose interior materials remain presentable and whose switchgear remains satisfying to use at 150,000 miles is a car that owners feel better about continuing to maintain and invest in, rather than abandoning for something newer simply because the interior has become depressing. That psychological element of long-term ownership has a real financial implication that most cost of ownership analyses undervalue. Mazda 6 owners who have driven their vehicles to high mileage consistently report that the primary maintenance requirements at 200,000 miles and beyond look remarkably similar to the maintenance requirements at 50,000 miles. Timing chain service on the correctly maintained engine, cooling system refresh every 3 to 4 years, brake component replacement on a normal wear schedule, tire rotation, and replacement. The dramatic surprise repairs that define high mileage ownership on less reliable platforms simply do not appear in Mazda 6 ownership histories at the same frequency. The mid-size sedan segment may be contracting, but for buyers who want the combination of interior space, driving refinement, long-term reliability, and total ownership cost that the Mazda 6 delivers, the car makes an argument that is genuinely difficult to match with anything currently in production. The next model on this list has one of the most devoted owner communities in the entire automotive world. People do not just drive this Mazda, they become identified with it in a way that reflects how deeply the car delivers on its promises over years of real-world use. Number 2. Mazda MX-5 Miata. The Mazda MX-5 Miata is the best-selling 2-seat sports car in automotive history. More than 1 million units have been produced across 4 generations since the original launch in 1989, and that number keeps climbing steadily. That commercial achievement is remarkable on its own. But what makes the Miata genuinely extraordinary from a reliability and longevity standpoint is something that most people outside the dedicated Miata community never fully appreciate. This is a sports car that you can own for 30 years and 300,000 miles without treating it like a project, or accepting constant expensive repairs as part of the ownership bargain. In a segment where mechanical drama and high maintenance costs are almost universally accepted as the price of admission, the Miata stands apart as a vehicle that delivers genuine sports car enjoyment while costing less per mile to operate than many practical family sedans. The reason begins with the engineering philosophy Mazda applied from the very first generation. Jinba Itai is the Japanese phrase Mazda uses internally to describe the ideal relationship between driver and car, roughly translated as horse and rider as one. Pursuing that philosophy through engineering led Mazda to reject complexity as a tool for achieving performance. The Miata achieves its driving character through lightweight, perfect weight distribution, and precise mechanical feedback, rather than through power, forced induction, or sophisticated electronic intervention systems that add cost, complexity, and maintenance burden. The result is an engine that does not need to work particularly hard to deliver a rewarding driving experience. The 1.5 and 2.0-liter naturally aspirated engines across various Miata generations operate comfortably within their design parameters during normal spirited driving. Engines that are not being consistently pushed to their limits last longer and require less maintenance attention than engines that are routinely working near maximum output. The Miata's power-to-weight advantage means its relatively modest engines feel adequately powerful while delivering the kind of relaxed internal stress levels that translate into extraordinary longevity. Miata engines have a documented history of reaching extremely high mileage with proper maintenance. Owner reports of 200,000, 250,000, and 300,000 miles on original engines are not unusual within the Miata community. They are common enough that high-mileage Miatas trading on the used market carry a different status than high-mileage examples of most other sports cars, rather than being viewed as worn-out examples to avoid. High-mileage Miatas with documented service histories are frequently sought out by experienced buyers who understand the car's longevity potential and want to acquire that remaining mileage at used car pricing. The Miata's simplicity also extends to maintenance costs in a way that defies sports car expectations. Parts are inexpensive relative to competing sports cars. The mechanic community familiar with Miata platforms is large because over 35 years of continuous production has created an enormous installed base and a correspondingly large pool of mechanics with direct experience on the platform. Labor costs for Miata service are accessible because the mechanical layout is straightforward and does not require specialized tooling or proprietary diagnostic equipment to work on correctly. Soft-top maintenance deserves specific mention for Miata owners chasing maximum longevity. The convertible top on a Miata is a wear item that requires periodic care to achieve its full lifespan. Owners who clean and condition the fabric or vinyl regularly, store the car away from prolonged ultraviolet exposure when practical, and operate the top mechanism carefully achieve dramatically longer top life than owners who treat it as maintenance-free. A properly cared for Miata soft top can last 15 to 20 years. A neglected one may require replacement within 8 to 10 years. The difference between those outcomes is a few minutes of care every few months. The Miata is proof that the most enjoyable cars to drive and the most reliable cars to own do not have to be different cars. Mazda built something genuinely rare with the Miata, a sports car that rewards its owners with driving pleasure and financial peace of mind simultaneously, consistently, across every generation of the model's remarkable 35-year production history. If the Miata at number 2 is this good, what Mazda could possibly sit above it? The answer involves a model that accumulated one of the most extraordinary reliability reputations in the history of the Japanese automotive industry, a model whose high-mileage ownership stories stretch far enough to make even seasoned automotive journalists pause and reconsider what they think they know about how long a well-built car can actually last. Number 1. Mazda B-Series truck and the broader legacy of the B platform. Before you push back on this choice, stay with me for 2 minutes, because the case for the Mazda B-Series truck and the broader B platform legacy sitting at number 1 on a list of Mazdas that last forever is based on real-world ownership data that is more compelling than anything else in the Mazda catalog, and possibly more compelling than anything produced by any mainstream Japanese manufacturer over the same period. The Mazda B-Series pickup truck was produced across multiple generations, from 1961 all the way through 2010 in various markets. In the United States, the B-Series ran from 1972 through 2010 as a compact and mid-size pickup that shared platform architecture with Ford Ranger during the later generations of its production life. That engineering partnership gave the B-Series access to a level of development and refinement investment larger than Mazda could have deployed independently on a niche truck model. While Mazda's influence on powertrain selection and quality control produced a truck whose mechanical durability record became the stuff of legend among owners who discovered it through experience rather than marketing. The naturally aspirated 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder engines fitted to various B-Series generations accumulated owner-reported high-mileage stories that are extraordinary, even by the standards of Japanese truck durability. Documented examples of B-Series trucks reaching 300,000, 400,000, and in several well-publicized cases, over 500,000 miles on original engines exist in numbers large enough to represent a pattern rather than an anomaly. These are not babied show vehicles or garage queens with low actual use hours. They are working trucks that accumulated those miles through real use, often including towing, hauling, and the kind of mechanical stress that reveals every weakness in a powertrain design with ruthless efficiency. What made the B-Series engine platform so durable was a combination of conservative engineering specifications and exceptional manufacturing quality at the factory level. The engines were not designed to produce impressive power figures for marketing purposes. They were designed to operate comfortably within their design limits throughout a very long service life. Conservative compression ratios, robust bearing sizing, cooling system capacity that matched the thermal demands of the engine rather than being minimized for cost reduction. These are engineering choices that sacrifice short-term benchmark performance for long-term reliability, and B-Series ownership histories confirm that those choices paid off over decades of real-world use. The B-Series also benefits from one of the most mature and accessible parts ecosystems of any discontinued Mazda model because the later generations shared significant mechanical architecture with the Ford Ranger. The combined parts supply chain supporting both platforms is enormous. Components that are no longer manufactured specifically for the Mazda application are frequently available through Ford Ranger suppliers, which means B-Series owners can source mechanical parts at competitive prices through an extensive network of suppliers rather than hunting through increasingly scarce Mazda-specific inventory. But the B-Series is not just about the truck itself. It represents the foundation of a broader Mazda engineering legacy that explains why every other vehicle on this list performs the way it does at high mileage. The lessons Mazda learned across decades of building naturally aspirated engines in the B-Series, the discipline of prioritizing durability over peak performance figures, the commitment to conservative engineering specifications that age gracefully rather than impressively. These are the same principles that went into the Skyactiv engine family that now powers the CX-5, the Mazda 3, the Mazda 6, and the Miata. Understanding the B-Series means understanding why Mazda builds engines the way they do across their entire lineup today. It is the foundation on which everything that follows was constructed. And the foundation was built extraordinarily well. Modern Mazda owners benefit from that legacy, whether they know it or not. Every time a CX-5 owner crosses 250,000 miles without a major engine repair, they are experiencing the downstream effect of decisions made by Mazda engineers across decades of building trucks that refuse to quit. Every time their vehicle at 180,000 miles costs less per year to maintain than their neighbor's newer, more complex crossover. They are benefiting from a manufacturing culture that the B-Series helped create and define. Longevity in an automobile is never accidental. It is always the result of specific decisions made by specific engineers who chose durability over short-term metrics, and specific owners who chose consistent correct maintenance over the path of least resistance when the service interval arrived. Mazda has been making the right engineering decisions for longer than most people realize, and the owners on this list who discovered that fact through experience have been rewarded in ways that cannot be fully expressed in a reliability ranking or a cost per mile calculation. They got something rarer than a cheap repair bill. They got a car that earned their trust completely, 1 mile at a time, for as many miles as they chose to keep driving it. Hey, thanks for watching. If this list changed how you think about Mazda ownership or helped you make a decision about your next vehicle, let us know in the comments below. Which model surprised you the most? Want to see the 5 most reliable Toyotas ranked the same way? Click on the left, and if you do not want to miss more deep dive reliability breakdowns like this one, hit that subscribe button right now.